Dr. Duncan Robertson is from Loughborough University School of Business and Economics, and as always is our guide to the science. Duncan, hi.
Morning, Ben.
Look, first of all, talk us through. There's been a lot of concern about the Indian variant, but as I understand it, some quite good news coming out of sort of real-time testing in India.
So, I mean, the big sort of news, if you like, is about the India variant, or the variant that was first discovered in India. And the sort of what Chris Whitty, the chief scientific advisor, was saying at the end of last week was basically it's more transmissible, and that really poses a potential problem for the roadmap going forward. And we know it's more transmissible, but we're not really sure how much more transmissible, and that puts this sort of reopening at risk. So we do have we found cases in Leicester, and the number of cases are going up in Leicester. So, we've been here before, I think, in terms of if you look at, say, Bolton and Blackburn, where they're at very high case rates, it's possible that Leicester is following on behind. Now, that's not in any way sort of confirmed, but we sort of have to think about what we can do. And I think, I would sort of say, personally, get vaccinated if you haven't got vaccinated, get your second vaccine if you haven't had that, because that's what people can do to really have the best sort of outcome going forward.
And those sort of upticks, is that because of the sort of lag as things have been opening up a little bit over the last month, 5 weeks or so? Is that because of that? Well,
the thing is, at the sort of early stage of certain areas increasing rapidly, there are some it's not sort of consistent around the country. So there are some areas, as I say, Bolton, Blackburn, they're the ones that are getting the attention now. But we have had sort of mixing taking place. And, with the India variant coming in, it's being seeded in different places around the country. And, the risk is that those have a, foothold and then can spread in local areas. And at this stage, it will be sort of local outbreaks before it potentially, and we're not, potentially becomes a more sort of, national problem. So, we've got these sort of release of restrictions, so people can go and mix in other people's houses. But, still it is safer to do it, or less risky, put it that way, to meet outdoors. And if you do meet indoors, I think ventilation is another way of sort of reducing the risk.
We'll talk about ventilation in a second or two, but because it's interesting. I know that Jimmy was talking to somebody on the breakfast show this morning who also mentioned ventilation, and we had a hotel owner saying, "For heaven's sake, if you're going to come to the restaurant, we'd love to see you, but bring a jumper because the windows are open." But look, this uptick is not unexpected. There is. I mean, you've been expecting it for a while. The figures have been reasonably stable for quite a long time. Presumably, you're hoping that the vaccination program will put the brakes on it.
Well, absolutely. And, I've been sort of saying this battle between virus vaccines and variants. And at the moment we have, it's finely balanced between the vaccines and the India variant. And this is where it also becomes a problem that's not sort of, the same across the country. So if you look at, areas, I don't know, which are more deprived, which have, more ethnic communities, they tend to be the ones that don't have as many people who have been vaccinated. So that's why, there are huge drives in Bolton and Blackburn at the moment to get everybody who's eligible to be vaccinated. So I think that's what we can do individually, is just to get that vaccine when we can, because it's quite important.
And as far as figures go, is there anything that particularly alarms you at the moment?
Well, I think, give me 2 weeks and I'll tell you. and that's where we are really, because, we are seeing areas where there are very high rates. And at the moment, we have about 50 cases per 100,000 in Leicester. And we don't know how much more transmissible this variant is. If it's up to 40 to 50% more transmissible, then we have a potential serious problem with the roadmap and, potentially reimposing restrictions going forward. But we don't know whether it is. It's just, that's a sort of reasonable assumption. But we need to wait and see what happens with case numbers over the next coming weeks, and then we'll know. But the risk is, it's then more mixing has happened and more cases are out there.
And look, I guess it's interesting. There's sort of slightly mixed messaging, isn't there? Even the front pages of the newspapers can't quite make their mind up today about whether to be gleeful or everybody let's just keep our heads for a bit.
Well, that's right, and I think if you read the Sun, there was get your shots with a person and someone getting a vaccine and someone taking a drink, and I think people can read those sort of messages either way, and people will do what they want to do, but it's just important that we know that there is a risk out there, and the government's taking a view about how to deal with that risk. But what we can do as individuals is just to sort of say get vaccinated, and maybe not mix as much as we had hoped, because they're the ways we can sort of control it personally.
And in terms of the vaccine rollout, over 35, is it? That's where we are, I think, now.
I think we're moving towards that this week. So I think we're about 38 plus at the moment. So absolutely. Right. So going right down those age groups. But of course, only it's a fantastic figure. 50% of the country's been vaccinated. Around quarter have had their second vaccination. So it's not everybody. So if you are lucky enough to be in one of those eligible categories, very much go and get your vaccine.
Duncan, thank you ever so much. Dr. Duncan Robertson from Loughborough University School of Business and Economics, been our guide for the last, 13, 14, 15 months, right since March last year.